all of the statewide candidates that I talked to come to the front, because we're going to put you on blast so people can just look at you. So I'm talking about Richard Finneran, we're talking about Elad Gross, did I say Elad?
Yes.
Elad. Right, and Vicki. And also our gubernatorial candidate, which is Nicole Galloway. So listen, before we, start, having them answer questions and everything, I want you guys to give Alderman Jeffrey Boyd a big hand for allowing us to be in this space. And I'm going to bring him to the microphone so that he can have a few words, but this is an awesome event space. If you've never been in here for a wedding, oh my God, it is a beautiful space. So if you ever want to rent this space, we got this big space on this side, and we got a smaller space on the other side, but it's phenomenal. And normally, the bar is open, but come on.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, again. And welcome to the best place to have a party, a reception, just a grand old time. My wife and I invested in this a few years ago. Spending 20 years in the military, I know how to lead by example. So I thought that we would do a major investment in this community, especially along Martin Luther King, to try to attract developers to come in and make a difference as well. So welcome. I'm going to bring out, we have more tables, so people don't have to stand up. More chairs, and I can bring more chairs out as well. Wasn't expected to have the bar open, but I can open the bar for beer and wine. So if it's early enough for you, you want some beer and wine, I'll be back there at the bar to serve you. We do have some water. The senator has some water brought in, so if you want a bottle of water or something like that, just see me at the bar as well. Thank you.
So now listen, this is election season, so what I want to do is, first of all, I'm going to just say the names of our candidates, but I want to bring up our gubernatorial candidate first. I'm going to let her talk to you first, and then I got a couple questions I want to ask her, but she has another event that she has to get to as well. This is election year, so we do be moving as elected officials. So we have Nicole Galloway, she's running for governor, she's our state auditor currently. We have Yinka Faleti. He is running for Secretary of State. We have Richard Finneran. Finneran. He's running for Attorney General. We have Elad Gross, who is also running for Attorney General. Supporters. We have Vicki Englund, who is running for treasurer. So the first person I'm going to, if you don't know who I am State Senator Carla May. You're sitting in the 4th senatorial district. I want to thank you all for coming with your attendance and giving us an opportunity to introduce you to some people who are seeking your vote next year. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our governor for 2020.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Carla. And I'm not going to take up too much of your time because we have some great candidates here that we all want to hear from. But first, I just want to say Happy Thanksgiving.
Hey.
Yeah. It has been great being in St. Louis. We were here since early this morning with the Demetrius Johnson Community Foundation. Some of you might know about DJ. And he passes out 3,000 turkeys and Thanksgiving meals to folks within the community that may not have something like that, right? That really means something to them. And I was so proud to be a part of that. Standing up here and telling you that I am running for governor is certainly nothing that I thought that I would say in my life. Because I don't come from a political family. I grew up in Fenton. And growing up, we weren't into politics at all. My mom's a nurse. My dad's an engineer for a general contractor. But growing up, I was into math. And after I left Fenton, I went to Rolla. I have degrees in applied mathematics and economics. and I'm also a CPA and a certified fraud examiner. I have audited Fortune 500 companies, I have audited public entities and helped send corrupt public officials to jail. I've been a county auditor, and I'm proud of the work that I have accomplished. But being a mother to my 3 boys is the most important job I have, and the thing that I am proudest of. My husband John and I live in Columbia, and we're raising 3 sons, William, Ben, and Joseph will soon be 3 years old. And everyone in this room knows that being a parent is hard. Being a mom is tough. But for too many in Missouri, being a parent is way harder than it has to be. You know, I care a lot about the future of this state and what it's going to be for my family and for your family. And just a couple weeks ago, I learned of a story of a woman in Kansas City. And this woman, this mom, found out that her 15-year-old son had bought a gun. And her 15-year-old son had bought a gun from a 17-year-old in the neighborhood. And when mom asked her son, why did you buy this gun? His answer, what difference does it make? I'm not going to live till 21 anyway. Here in St. Louis at the beginning of the school year, elementary students at Clay Elementary were greeted with grief counselors their first day of school because their classmate Xavier had been shot by a stray bullet the day before. And Trinity, his 10-year-old sister, was trying to do CPR on her dying 7-year-old brother while they were playing in the backyard because Dawn, their mom, taught them how to do CPR just in case they might ever get shot. Days after her 7-year-old son died, she said she was glad, she was almost happy that he had died because that meant the streets didn't have an opportunity to claim him. That it could have been her son holding that gun and shooting that gun someday. I'll tell you, when I heard that story, it broke my heart. My son William is 7 years old. He's in 2nd grade, the same age as Dawn's son. I cannot imagine the heartache that has set in for her. It breaks my heart too. But the inaction on gun violence in our state, that just makes me mad. Doesn't it make you mad too?
Yes.
Yeah. This is unacceptable. And when our governor is asked, what are you going to do about the gun violence that plagues our communities? His answer, he needs to stay in his lane. It is not his responsibility. Let the legislature or someone else handle it. That is not good enough. I am upset. I am heartbroken. I am mad. But I also have resolve. And I know that with your support, as your governor, I will pass common sense gun safety measures that will help keep our community safe and just make sense for the future of what we want our state to be. Look, you know, as your state auditor, I have never settled for the way things are. I have always fought for things to be better for you and for your family. And I think this is worth fighting for. Look, I don't think that Governor Parson is a bad person. I don't think that he's a bad guy. But being better than Eric Greitens is too low of a bar. To lead our state forward when searching for solutions for the big problems that face our state. He continuously reaches to the past, continuously reaches to the same insiders, the same folks that have got us to where we are today. I am offering a new way. A new way where kids have hope in their communities, that they are safe. A new way where we have expanded Medicaid and people can get access to health. A new way that values education is a priority in our budget, and teachers are paid a terrific salary that values the work that they do. And a new way where dark money and insiders don't dictate who wins and who loses. The fight ahead is going to be tough. I know it. But I absolutely think that this is worth fighting for. And I am committed to doing everything I can. We have great candidates running up and down the ballot. And I am committed to reopening the Democratic Party office here in the city of St. Louis. So the city of St. Louis, the voters here, the constituents here, and the people that are impacted by policies know that we care, and we are willing to put in the work to get it done. As I said, this road is going to be tough, but I'm so glad that I have your support as we carry on this fight. Thank you.
So basically, you should have on your table about some small pieces of paper where you can write down questions. I have Ben running around, he's picking up some papers. I have James, my community affairs director, he'll be picking up paper so they can bring up the questions to us. So one of the questions that we already have from the audience is, what is your plan to rebuild support in rural Missouri and across the state to eliminate the divide between urban and rural in the state of Missouri?
You know, I am not afraid to go anywhere in this state and let people know who I am and why I'm running. And first and foremost, it's to put Jefferson City back on the side of working families. Because people in this state work hard for what they have, they work hard for an opportunity for themselves and for their future. And when I go into rural communities, they value the same things that we value here. Access to health care and education, and working hard and providing an opportunity. Look, healthcare is probably the #1 issue in rural communities right now, because hospitals are closing at an alarming rate. So even if you are lucky enough to have health insurance, there's nowhere to use it, or you have to drive 30, 50, 100 miles in case of an accident. Medicaid expansion is making its way to the ballot right now through an initiative process. And I believe that if it makes it to the ballot, it will pass. I also believe that if voters say they want Medicaid expansion, our current governor will not implement it. He has shown the ability to disregard the will of the voters. Think about Clean Missouri, right? And how they want to overturn Clean Missouri. And so when I'm out there talking to rural voters, I'm saying the same things that I'm saying right now. We need access to health care. If Medicaid is expanded, I will implement it so people have access to the health care that they need in an affordable and effective way. I think anywhere we go in the state, you have to be genuine in your beliefs and talk to them in a way that relates to really what they have going on in their lives.
I got one more question for you, then we're going to let you escape out of here. Okay, it says, how do we protect reproductive health in this hostile political environment? So that's one of the questions. And elected officials, I'm going to recognize you as soon as the gubernatorial candidate finishes.
Well, I will just say, I trust women to make their own health care decisions. I also have said publicly that I believe that Randall Williams, the director of the Department of Health, should be fired. I don't believe in weaponizing a department within your government for political purposes. And that's what we saw, and that's what we have seen. Look, Governor Parsons' attacks on women's health care is extreme, and it is cruel. I have talked to a lot of folks who have said, you know, if my daughter were raped, if my daughter were a victim, she should decide what comes next, not Mike Parsons. And when I have 3 boys, and when I make decisions about my own health care, I consult my faith, my family, my physician. I am not calling a politician. That is how I would govern. Because politicians do not belong in your personal health care decisions.
Well, we definitely want to thank you for stopping by and having this conversation with us. So we're going to continue the panel. We want you to give it up for Nicole Galloway. For coming by. She is our 2020 gubernatorial candidate that's running in 2020. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to hear from her and to, you know, get it in early before the holidays. So while you're meditating over your turkey and your Christmas and your presents, you can think about voting in 2020. So that's the key. So we want to do a little housekeeping rules. I wanted to recognize the committee woman for the 22nd Ward as well. She's in the house. Ms. Walk over there. Norm Walk. She's in the house. I see him standing over there. He's in here. Okay, so he's the newly elected state representative for the 78th. We have Jill Corwell sitting down in the front. She's the 28th Ward committee woman. So y'all know I'm gonna miss some. Yes, I'm gonna tell all the other electeds. I got my senator standing over here in the corner. Senator African-American female senators in the city. I see we have State Rep Steve Roberts back in the back over there. We have State Representative Lakeisha Fraser-Bosley in the house. I see State Representative Wiley Price in the house. For the first ward is in here too. Ms. Brown, there she is right there. You know, I have to take these glasses on and off so I can see, you know, I don't know. We got State Representative Tommy Pearson in the back. Yeah, I already announced my senator, Jamila Nasheed. I already did that. Who else am I missing?
Leroy Carter.
Leroy Carter, that's right, 21st. That's right.
Tommy Pearson.
No, Doug. I said Tommy Pearson already. Now, Doug, you know, I can't tell your number right now. So we got Doug in here.
Representative Kevin Windham.
Where's Kevin? Okay, we got Kevin Windham. St. Louis County. Come on, yell it out so I can hear it. West Rogers. Western Florida. Who else we have?
Terry Wilson, Councilman Wilson.
Terry Wilson. I see him in the back.
State Committee.
State Committee, that's right, Dennis, from State Committee. So listen, I want to thank everybody for coming down. What we're going to do is we want you to send your questions up. We're going to give the panelists 1 minute each to introduce themselves. Y'all heard me say 1 minute. And then you guys are going to take questions. Y'all heard me interrogated today. All right. You know. So we're going 1 minute, you want to start off? Or do we want to start off in order of, it doesn't
Can we
matter.
negotiate for 2 minutes, Senator?
Huh?
Can we negotiate for 2 minutes?
Okay, we're gonna give you 2 minutes. She served in the House with me, so you know, we negotiate. We definitely not gonna do 15. Come on. We have Yinka Faleti, running for Secretary.
I'll stand here. Can everybody hear me? No?
There you go.
All right, how about now? Yeah. All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How is everybody? It's great to be here with you. Thank you to Senator Carla May and the other organizers of this, Alderman Boyd and so many others who helped to make today possible. It's great to connect with you. Thank you all for being here, for taking a part of your day to come and learn more from us and learn about engaging in 2020. Briefly, I want to just let you know, you probably heard my name, Yinka, Faleti. Have you ever heard that name in St. Louis before? No, you probably figured that's not a name from St. Louis. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. I came to the U.S. when I was 7 years old. I grew up mostly in Florida and Texas, high school in Texas, moved here in 2004. But prior to moving here, I moved here for law school to go to WashU Law. Prior to moving here, I got a chance to get admitted to West Point, a high school in Texas. From West Point, I served 6 years active duty. You guys remember this guy named Saddam Hussein? That guy sound familiar? When I was in Fort Hood, Texas, I deployed to Kuwait with my unit, 1st Cavalry Division. When Saddam Hussein was still around, we came back in August of 2001. We thought we'd never go back to Kuwait. Little did we know, a few short weeks later, our country would be attacked. Deployed to Kuwait again after September 11. I served my whole entire 6 years in the Army. I served on tanks and in tank units. So after my time in the Army, I moved here to go to law school. From law school, I worked at Bryan Cave. I met one of the other candidates running back here at Bryan Cave. And I did litigation, but I missed service. So I went to be a state prosecutor to help people who've been burglarized, people who've been abused, people who've been assaulted, and loved helping victims of crime, but wanted to get from the back to the front, so I went to United Way of Greater St. Louis. I led the team there to raise the money and engage the volunteers, raised $300 million for this region, this Greater St. Louis region. Didn't do it by myself, had a great team, great volunteers, but realized that with all the money raised, we still had systemic issues, systemic inequities in health, education, and transportation, and wanted to get to the root of those issues, so I went to lead Forward Through Ferguson. How many here have heard of Forward Through Ferguson? Good number of hands. If you haven't, it's the nonprofit that was started by the Ferguson Commission after they finished their work. They started that nonprofit to keep the work going. And after Forward Through Ferguson, I decided I needed to get to where people are making the policies that they either making people's lives better or making people's lives worse. And so I'm running for Secretary of State. I look forward to taking your questions and engaging more with you when we do the Q&A. Thanks so much.
Very good. You have 22 seconds to spare. So I just want y'all to keep your time. Okay. Vicki, Englund, running for treasurer of the state of Missouri.
So, good afternoon. Glad you guys are all here. You guys are the diehards, right? You're people who care about our country, care about our state, and you're here to learn more and to find out what we're all about. As the Senator said, my name is Vicki Englund. I served in the Missouri House for 4 years. I have a background working for the Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C., also working in real estate, and as a state rep, I kind of have a little bit of a checkered background. What I mean by that is I was first elected in 2008. I represented the Melville area of South County, South St. Louis County. We had flipped that seat from Republican to Democrat in 2008. And then the woman that I beat in 2008 beat me in 2010. I beat her in 2012. She beat me in 2014. And so it was supposed to be my turn in 2016, but then, you know, Donald Trump happened and here we are. So I took a couple of years off politics. I kind of thought about life. I got married, had another baby. I did the things that we all do in our normal lives when we're not quote-unquote politicians. And the more I sat back and watched what was happening to our country and our state, my yelling at the TV got louder, and it got more frequent. And I started worrying that I was going to start throwing things at my TV, and then that would be too much. So I thought about it for a long time, and I said, look, I was a public servant. I also served for 6 years on the Lindbergh School Board. So I understand public service. The people who are leading our country right now, and our state, don't understand the word public, and they don't understand the word service. And so I'm running for state treasurer because I want to return the respect, not just back to public service, but to the people of this state who I feel have been disrespected by the leadership we currently have. Now let me tell you one thing. That anger that I feel when I'm watching my TV and when I'm seeing what's happening at the state level, it stems from a couple of places. One, I mentioned I had a baby recently. I am going to ignore that. I had a baby. I was in the hospital having my son the exact same day that House Bill 126 was passed and signed into law. I was there in the hospital making important decisions about my child and myself and how to best be a mother that other people instantly have those rights taken away. So that issue is very near and dear to my heart. And the last thing I'll say is this. When you watch TV or you hear about what's going on with the governor or any of these other statewide people who are trying to make decisions about the state and it makes you angry, do you know what it's called when you take your anger and you turn it into something positive? It's called voting. So remember that. Your voice is your voice, your vote is your vote, and we need you to all come out and support us, and we will be there for you.
All right, we have some other elected officials walk in. Marty Joe Murray is walked in. I don't know if Marty. Is Bob in here? Oh, there he is, right there. And then we got Steve. He's in the house. So now we're going to move to Rich Finneran. Yeah, Rich Finneran. Attorney General.
Hi everybody, how you doing? We're so excited to see on a November day, kind of cloudy and everything, that we got such an amazing group of people out already geared up for next year, this time when we're going to be actually taking all these candidates up and actually turning things around in Jefferson City. And I could not be prouder to be standing alongside all these people and Nicole in that effort. So I'm the newest member of this group. I only got in the race about a month ago, so I'd like to take a second to introduce myself to you. My name is Rich Finneran. I grew up in St. Louis County. I've lived in U City for the last 14 years. I was a federal prosecutor here in St. Louis, worked in the city for 7 years of my legal career. And during that time, I worked to help get guns off the streets of St. Louis. And I also worked to help to protect you and your family when corporations or individuals would try to rip them off. And I handled the 2 largest financial fraud cases ever prosecuted in that district, helped recover millions of dollars for victims. And then when 2017 came around, I said, you know what, maybe it's time to get re-engaged. I saw too much going on outside of my world in that office that I was too upset about. And I said, we've got to find a way to turn things around. So as a federal prosecutor, I know how important it is that politics never get in the way of the law being enforced fairly and equally. But unfortunately, that's exactly what's going on right now in Jefferson City. I'm sure you guys maybe have heard of my opponent, Eric Schmidt. He is a politician. He's not a prosecutor. And what he's been doing in that office is playing politics with a job that should be about law enforcement and about keeping you and your family safe. That's why he's right now down in Texas pulling off a lawsuit to try to get Obamacare thrown out again, when he should be working to try to protect your coverage for pre-existing conditions. That's why he's trying to defend this unconstitutional 8-week abortion ban that makes no exceptions for rape or incest, when he should be trying to protect women's access to health care and our ability to serve our communities well. So that's why I'm in this race. I'm running for Missouri Attorney General because I think we need to get politics out of the Attorney General's office and put people ahead of politics again. Right on time. All right, thank you.
Well, that was perfect. All right, we have Elad running for Attorney General.
Yeah. My name is Elad Gross. I'm trying to be the first 16-year-old Attorney General in our state system. Yeah. And it's really important. The Attorney General's office is the one that holds all the other ones accountable. And right now, we've got a guy in that office who is literally taking dark money, what Nicole was just talking about, a guy in the office that's doing all of these crazy things in our state. He is not here for us. No! He's not! And we need someone who is. Yeah, we've got coloring stuff on that table. We're doing a great job. I see it working. Yeah, so I've been running around for quite a bit now. This is my 306th meeting in the state of Missouri. Yes, thank you. And I do need to give a couple of announcements that are more important than time I could take anyway. Number one, we need to get Medicaid expanded in our state, so please sign the expansion right now. If you have it, hold your hand up if you have it. You got Kevin? Good. Yes, over here too. We're on both sides of the room. We've also got It Starts Today, which is doing wonderful work for state districts all over the place to get state representatives elected. All of these elections, everything that we can talk about today, it must include all of us in this process. We have got to get our voices heard in Jefferson City. We need to make sure that we're the ones who are heard, that our voices are finally the ones that we listen to instead of those with money and power and lawyers. I'm running for Attorney General to prosecute public corruption and return our government to us. And that's why I'm excited to be here today. So thanks for having me.
You're under time. So basically, how we're going to run this is, it's 1:54. This is supposed to end at 3 o'clock. So all you math geniuses, we're going to do is 60 minutes in that hour, right? So that means we're going to give you 1 minute or less, 30 seconds or so, to answer the question so that we can keep it moving. Now, I'm going to give the microphone over to you because I talk real loud. So I'm going to say the question, and then you guys answer it, and see, I was always told never give a politician a microphone, they like to talk. So I'm going to trust you with this microphone. Let's see, is it going to be able to reach? I think it will. So hang on, let me just walk around like this. And do this. Okay. That way, you guys can pass the microphone so that they can hear your answers. So. Well, yeah. Yeah, you stand up. So now listen, these questions are not in any particular order. I was just calling them in as Dave was doing.
Yes. Good. Can I start with that one? Is that good?
You got the mic?
Yeah. Well, I'm running for Attorney General of Missouri. The Attorney General is really involved in consumer protection issues and workplace issues throughout our state. I have already proposed, and we've got a lot of plans online, I've proposed instituting and creating a civil rights division in the office. Right now, we don't have one. A lot of other states do. That civil rights divisions will protect folks in the workplace, will ensure that folks in housing, we've got, is Jamila Nasheed still here? Is the senator still here? No? Well, Jake's here. Can we give a hand for Jamila anyway, because she has been going after TDH realty, which is keeping people in freaking frozen homes right now. We need to go after folks like that. So the Civil Rights Division will play a very big role in the job of the workforce here. I have worked in St. Louis City for a good long time, about 11 years. I've been teaching at a school not too far from here, Lexington Elementary. I've been in the Hyde Park area for the last 8 years. Xavier was one of my kids. He was one of my campers, and violence is an extremely important issue. And we are coming out with a comprehensive plan to deal with that in our state. We've been working with partners throughout our state, law enforcement officers, prosecutors, public defenders. I used to be a public defender for the state of Missouri as well. If we can deal with violent crime and stem violent crime and make that a major issue, which means we're also ensuring jobs and social services and work in our communities, when we're reinvesting in our communities, we can bring a lot of these things back to our communities throughout our state. And I think that means we have to work with folks throughout Missouri, whether you're in the Boot Heel or in North St. Louis City, to really reinvigorate our economy in a lot of ways so that it helps us, not just those with a lot of money and power.
Somebody else want to ask that question as well?
I will, that's all right. Well, let's hear that round of applause for that answer. That's a great answer. thing you'll see is, you watch us talking, and Elad and I have a lot in common. We agree on a lot of these issues, and one is that we definitely agree the Attorney General's office needs to do more to protect employees, consumers of all races, all colors, to make sure that people have equal opportunity, equal access to all those things. I'll add just a couple of things that Elad didn't mention. One of those things is healthcare. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we have an Attorney General right now who is actively trying to get Obamacare thrown out. He is trying to make it so that we won't have coverage for pre-existing conditions, that kids who are on their parents' health insurance right now won't be able to stay on it, trying to make it so that people won't be able to get access to health care because they don't have the money to be able to do it. And so that's one of the most important things we have to do in all our communities, to make sure people maintain that access, because like Elad was saying, that contributes to your ability to get a job, it contributes to your ability to be successful in this country, is having that access to health care. So that's the main thing I would emphasize and add to all the great remarks that Elad gave a second ago.
What I would say is the Treasurer's Office plays the role of basically the CFO of the state. And so when whatever money is not being expended by the general revenue by the legislature, one of the roles of the state treasurer is to invest that money. The state treasurer also does agricultural loans and small business loans. So I want to take a look at that and see if we are making those loans available to everyone in the state, especially in areas for minority-owned businesses. We also have 529 college savings plan that the Treasurer's Office runs. That's something that not enough people know about. They don't know about these 529 college savings plans that they can open for not just their own children, they can open for a nephew or a niece or a neighbor. And I think we need to do a better job of publicizing that. The new idea I have for the Treasurer's Office has to do with my experience online retail selling. So I've had small business for the last 20 years selling things on the internet. Treasurer's Office has an annual auction, and they have it physically in either Springfield or Columbia to auction items that are unclaimed property. We need to move those online because that's what other states are doing, that's what the whole world is doing. And I would also have training programs for people across the state on how they can make money online. You know, if you have a cell phone, you can have a small business, and that's the type of work that I've been doing over the past 20 years. And so I think we really need to reach out to people who want to have that extra money on the side that they can use when they need it.
This is a question I really respect, because this is the question that's on the minds of so many folks all across our state and so many people who live in and around the ground that we're sitting on right now. I have had a front row seat to many of the issues that were posed in that question. As a prosecutor, I saw the results of lack of opportunity for so many people in our region. I saw the results of the heroin issue, not just in the rural parts of the state, but also here in the city. I saw the results of gun violence coming into the courtroom every day as a prosecutor here in St. Louis. When I went to United Way, I saw the efforts of nonprofits funded by United Way trying to deal with some of these issues. And so the challenge there is not just in being able to raise the money, but able to get to the root of the issues. When I was at 4th Ferguson, the legitimate child of the Ferguson Commission that talked about the very issues that were posed in that question, the inequities in health and education, in transportation, in criminal justice, all over this region, all over this state. I had a front row seat to the solutions that that commission proposed to get at this issue. And so I've been able to see this from different angles. And so when we talk about all of these things that we care about, there is one office that is central to those issues. And I'm not saying this just because I'm running for it. I'm saying this because it's true. If we cannot vote for the candidate or the ballot initiative petition that we believe is going to address the issues that we want to see addressed, it doesn't matter. It just flat out doesn't matter. And we've seen that in elections all over this country, and we've seen that in this state. That is why this office is so important. If we want to rid this region and this state of those issues of gun violence, of lack of educational opportunity, and equities in healthcare and transportation, we have to protect the ability of people to be able to vote. And we have to protect our ballot initiative process. And that's why I'm running. So thank you for watching.
So now listen, out. So for the entire panel, now I'm gonna read this question, but you know, some of you, we gotta write, you know, like I tell my son, incomplete sentences or something, but this says, union of you or grassroots funding. Who wrote that question?
Sorry, my penmanship is bad. It says which of you are grassroots funded.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Grassroots.
Which of you are grassroots funded?
Oh, okay, which of you are grassroots funded? Okay, yeah, okay, very good.
I won't speak for the others, but I think we are all candidates who are interested in trying to raise as much money as we can from the grassroots level. We are working, all of us, I believe, to try to go out and make sure that it's not just people who have big checks and big pocketbooks who are going to be able to influence elections, but it's people like the people in this room who care about issues that affect them and their families, that we listen to everybody's voice in this room, and we take the energy that we get out of rooms like this and take that into the next election. So I know that's how I'm trying to run my campaign, and I'm sure that that's going to be true of the other candidates, but if anyone else wants to chime in, they can do that. So
I have run for office 9 times. 2 of those were for school boards, so it wasn't really fundraising. But as far as running for state representative over the past decade, you can't really run a race without grassroots. Because what grassroots does for you, it not only shows that you are someone that other people support, it shows that you're doing the work. I mean, the last thing you want is to have someone, it's not typically on our party where this happens, but they just sit in their office all day and the checks just come in. They don't have to go to a forum like this. They don't want to talk to people. They don't want to try to find out what are your issues, and they don't want to listen to people's stories or find out about their healthcare concerns. So grassroots accomplishes many things. It accomplishes the fact that when we have more people supporting us, regardless of the dollar amount, it shows that we're out there doing the work. And when you are looking at a candidate, you need to look at that. You need to see, okay, does this person have a lot of people who gave them $10? A $10 or a $5 donation is a lot harder for us to get. And that means we're doing the work when you see those lower donor numbers.
I wholeheartedly agree with Vicki's answer, and I think to your question, part of what's helped is an initiative, a ballot initiative petition that we passed last year called Clean Missouri. So that ensures that no one donor can just write a big check and then the candidate's job is done. All of us, if we want to, would have to engage people all over the state because there's a cap on what each person can give. So I definitely believe in that. So thanks for that question.
I have a donor, his name is Jeff. Jeff lives in Salem, Missouri, which is a bit of ways from here. And Jeff sent me a letter, and in that letter he gave me $10, and he said, I am in a nursing home and I'm on Medicaid. I wrote back and I said, thank you so much for your donation. He asked for some cards, I sent it to him. He wrote back to me again, he sent me another $10. Said, hey, I'm on Medicaid, I'm in a nursing home. I have a total of $50 per month to spend. That man gave me 20% of the amount of money he gets in a month. And he believes so strongly in the message that we have for this campaign to make sure our government is representing his voice, to make sure that his is the voice that we're actually listening to in Jefferson City. The answer to your question is 100%. And we have the most donations to an Attorney General candidate in the history of our state by more than double. We have less money than what other folks do because we're doing this that way. We will not take local money, we will not take dark money, we will not take good money on this thing.
So in order for us, there's a lot of questions. Yes. So I'm gonna need you, like, for me, I would have been none. Yes, no. I want to take it because I want to, So, okay, so the next question is, what is your strategy to move wealth to the people that help create it, but don't shape in it or something?
Don't share it.
Don't share it. Right. Thank you, whoever wrote that. Thank you.
So the question is, what are we going to do to take wealth,
to move wealth
from the people who have it, who don't share it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, part of what we can do, and we haven't talked about labor unions yet, part of what we can do, and I have a 100% labor voting record, is talk about what Nicole talked about earlier, working families. You know, we have a lot of labor unions in our part of the state that fight hard to make sure that they get a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. And so when we're talking about those kinds of issues, in Jefferson City, they don't believe that. In Jefferson City, they want to take away the good paying jobs that we already have in place, which is ridiculous because we know how hard it is to create good paying jobs to begin with. In addition, we know that women get paid less than men. We know that, that's a fact. And so as a state treasurer, my goal is going to be working with, as I mentioned, small businesses, working with individuals to give them the power to be able to make their own living and to give them more tools available to them so that we can empower more people to do their own thing, because that's what this economy is all about. The days of having a million different corporations coming in and hiring hundreds and thousands of people, those are over. We're talking about a gig economy. People need to be able to have those tools in their own toolbox to be able to be successful. I don't know if I answered the question, but that was my
Long answer.
Well, wealth begins with education. If you don't have the education to attain the things you need to attain, to get the kind of work you need to get, it doesn't matter. So the first thing we've got to do is create equity in education across districts in this region and all over the state. We know that some of the issues in education here and in other parts of the state, you have school districts that are going to 4 days a week. So you can't create equity in education when you're going to school just 4 days a week. So that's one. The other thing you need to do to create, to be able to increase wealth is you've got to have political power. You can't have political power if you can't vote for the things that you want to see changed. Why can we not vote by mail? Why can't we do that? So we need to bring voting into this 21st century and revolutionize the way people can participate. And when you change the way people can participate, you can have an opportunity to increase wealth.
Okay.
You want me to? What do you want to say? You're senator. I can do it real quick. You want to do it real quick?
Yeah.
Raise minimum wage. Support small businesses. Yes. And enforce antitrust and corporate law to make sure that they're not exploiting us.
Some of these questions are similar, so I'm kind of combining our questions so we can keep it moving. This one is basically saying that secondary education, the new state government will support secondary education, especially students in mental health crises. And how are you guys going to engage young voters in the 2020 election? So, to support secondary education and young people's mental health crises on campus and engaging them in 2020 election. Quickly.
Well, we've got young people are the future, the present and the future. When you think about things like climate change, those things are affecting people now, but will continue to affect people into the future. So we've got to go where the young people are. And we have so many young folks all over our college campuses, all over the state. Mizzou and Rockhurst and WashU and SLU, UMKC, you name it. So we've got to go where they are and give them an opportunity to engage in the issues that matter to them, including mental health.
We have to invest in mental health in this state. We don't do that. We should start doing that. And for kids, we've actually gotten a lot of kids to work on the campaign. And I think you do that by giving folks responsibility. So instead of just saying, hey, you're grabbing a coffee or making these copies today, we actually have high school kids right now who are running parts of this campaign in our state. So I feel very strongly about that. I've been working with kids in civic engagement for years, and we need to give kids responsibility over our planet, and that's what we're doing.
Well, I couldn't agree more with what Yinka said earlier about education. I mean, it is really the fundamental core issue. It's the core driver of why we have inequality in this country, and it's one of the core ways that we can help to correct that inequality. So part of what I'm going to be focused on as Attorney General is making sure that our schools are having equal access for people and there's equal funding being given when it's supposed to be given. So we don't have schools that are being denied the ability to improve. We're having to cut down to 4 days a week because of the fact that we are not constitutionally ultimately enforcing the requirement that we have a good education for people regardless of their circumstances. So that's one of the main ways I answer that question. As far as engaging young people, we are all a group of energetic candidates on this stage who are interested in mobilizing movements to get this thing done. We are not just sitting in conference rooms and calling donors. We are actually going out and meeting people where they are, whether it's here in St. Louis, whether it's out in Rolla or mid-Missouri or any place else. That's how we engage people. That's how we win this race. And that's what I know the rest of us are committed to doing.
So in addition to having a 6-month at home, I also have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. So I have to engage young people all day long, every day. And it's not easy all the time, but what I do understand is, I think a lot of young people who are of voting age or soon to be of voting age, they don't necessarily think that their vote counts. We see a lot of people they get excited about a candidate or they get excited about an issue, and then when election day comes or something happens, they just don't think it's worth the time and the effort to find that church basement, to find that elementary school where their polling place is, to find some other building they have never been to in their lives. So I'm hoping to work with Mr. Faleti over here when he's Secretary of State so that we can make it a lot easier for people to vote. It's a very difficult process. Now, we should go to mail-in votes, but eventually, if you put something on a cell phone, that's how you get them. That's how you get them. So we also need to remember and remind young people that, look, the legislature in Virginia this past 2 cycles ago was decided by 1 vote. It came down to Democrat and Republican had the same number of votes. And not only did that race determine who got to be the state rep for that particular district, it determined what party got the majority in the Virginia legislature. And it came down to literally, I'd say a coin flip, but it was really, they put their names in a bucket and picked out a name. And so every single vote counts. When I won in 2012, I won by 313 votes. And so I know what that's like, and so we're working really hard to make sure that everybody's vote does count and that they know it and that they're there to exercise it come 2020.
So the next question is kind of a, some of y'all asked the same question, so I'm trying to put them all together. What will you do? Okay, so this question is about, I think you might have answered it a little before, but it's about how do you make Missouri a more equitable state, and is your campaign staff diverse, and will your state office be diverse?
I'm going to answer those in reverse. Yes. I'm going quick. Actually, I need to talk about this a little bit longer because the legal profession, unfortunately, and we both know this, well, we three of us do, it's not very diverse. And in the Attorney General's office, when I was there, I was in charge of recruiting for interns and a whole bunch of other folks. And I voiced my opinion pretty clearly that we did not do a very good job with that in hiring. And we need to change that quite a bit. And I think that means we have folks in those roles who have those experiences. And so I think a diverse Attorney General's office is extremely important, especially for all of the issues the Attorney General does deal with. So yes, same with our campaign. I think you need to have folks of diverse backgrounds, and they'll tell you they disagree with me all the freaking time, and that's how we live. So we've got folks all over the state doing that. So yeah, I think that that's extremely important, and I think that with a lot of the issues we've been talking about in terms of education and civil rights and all these other issues, we can do that throughout the entire state. So I'm hoping I'm not missing an element of that question.
No, you got it.
Okay, good. All right, thanks.
All right, well, yes, I mean, my commitment to diversity is paramount to me. I think it's incredibly important throughout the Attorney General's office, throughout the campaign, throughout everything else, that we're including diverse voices and perspectives, because if we are just listening to the people that look like us, then we're not getting the full perspective on what we need to do. So I haven't been at this quite as long as Elad has. I'm a month in, so I only have one staffer. She is a young woman, but I will, as I continue to grow out, have a lot more diversity in my campaign, because it's important to me that I have that diverse set of voices around me to help me have the best understanding of possible how I could be successful in the campaign and the Attorney General's office. Right now, I'm at Brian Cave. It's the law firm that Yinka mentioned earlier. It's one of the largest law firms in St. Louis. I'm very proud to say that I've been driving to help move more diverse candidates into our hiring in that firm. We just recently, about a month ago, brought on a partner into that office, into my group, which I helped recruit, who is an African-American, former executive assistant of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he has now joined the firm to help improve our diversity there. So it's been a priority to me everywhere I've been. It'll be a priority to me when I become Attorney General.
So yes, I have one staff person so far. She's here today as well. Diversity is one of those things that, you know, when you're a woman and you serve in the Missouri legislature, diversity is not a word that you come into contact every day in Jefferson City. I mean, I can tell you when I was first elected, I was sitting at my desk and I had someone come in the office and say, "Oh, let me know when your state rep gets back, I need to talk to him." And I was like, "Now what's your name? I need to write your name down and remember who you are." So having dealt with those kinds of issues, or being told that I couldn't sit at my own desk on the floor, because sweetheart, those are the desks for the state reps. Yeah, I know exactly what that feels like. It's something we as women legislators, I know the senator knows this as well, deal with in Jefferson City every day. So it's not something I think about extra, it's something that's just part of my everyday life. So it's definitely on the top of my mind without me actually thinking about it, because we just experience it every day. And so it takes more importance to you when you experience that, for sure.
Well, diversity is obviously very important to me. Pretty much every room I've been in and every institution I've been in, it's not just something I'm thinking about, it's something that's thinking about me. But it's not just diversity, it's also inclusion and it's also equity. Because if you have diversity but you don't have inclusion or equity, it doesn't matter. So, how do we create diversity in this state? It's not that hard, it's just a will to do it. So first you've got to create diversity in education, you've got to equity in education, you've got to create equity in economics, you've got to create equity in healthcare. In economics, it's about protecting unions. And so when you think about our minimum wage that was beat back by a ballot initiative, that was increased by the ballot initiative, that was great for our state. We think about the minimum wage and the right to work that was beat back by a ballot initiative. So those things are great, but we can do more things to create equity in economics. When you think about education and creating equity in education, it's about ensuring that it's not just certain school districts that have the resources they need. It's about ensuring that all school districts have the resources they need, no matter what the property taxes are of that neighborhood. So it's about ensuring that kids in North City, in North County, in the rural parts of the state that are going to 4 days a week have the resources they need. It's about how do we distribute the resources of the people and of this state. And when you think about equity in healthcare, it's about ensuring that there's not a 20-year life expectancy between zip codes adjoining in this region. So it's about the will to do it. It can be done. We have the roadmaps to do it. We need to elect the leaders who will get it done.
So these two questions are for the Attorney General candidates. Rich, this one is for you. I think somebody might have missed your opening statement. This says, what prompted you to enter the race for Attorney General at this time? And then a broader question for the two of you. What community programs have you been involved in? Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think I won't reiterate it too much, but to me, what drove me into this race was the recognition that we have an Attorney General in Eric Schmidt who is more interested in helping his political friends than he was interested in protecting the people of Missouri, and that is down the line, starting with health care, going all the way through women's health. And so I felt that it was my responsibility to take what I know and my ability as a federal prosecutor and bring that to the Attorney General's office so that we can actually have someone who protects everybody equally and not just the people who are their political friends. And that's really important to me. As far as community involvement, I mean, I've been in St. Louis for a long time. I've done a lot of different things to try to stay involved in the life of the community. As a federal prosecutor, I was involved in various different initiatives in that office to reach out, especially to minority communities, to try to make sure that we were helping to protect them as well as every other community in the state. And then I also, on the side of doing my regular lawyering job, I volunteered much of my time at my old law school at WashU to help train the next generation of lawyers so that they can be ones to help to protect the rights of individuals like yourselves in this room when people like Eric Schmidt go and try to take them away. So that's just a small sample of the things I've done in my life to try to make sure that I am working and putting my talents to help other people who are maybe not maybe they're going through a struggle at that time. So.
He's good. He's good at teaching. I volunteered sometimes and do it too. It's great. So I guess in terms of community involvement, I run the Education Exchange Corps, which is a program I started at Lexington Elementary, not far from here. I've been working with the St. Louis City School District for about 11 years, and I've been teaching for a while. My youth allows me to blend in a little bit. It's very helpful for me. But yeah, I've been teaching for a good long time. I'm also on the boards for a whole bunch of stuff in St. Louis. First Financial Federal Credit Union, shout out to them. I'm on the board for their community development org. I'm on the board for Clay Elementary. I'm on a number of different boards for citizenship education for kids. But a lot of my public service started in education with children, especially, I mean, just a couple blocks away from here. And I've been doing that while I was at the Attorney General's office, and I would get a lot of folks in the legal community involved in that too. And then obviously I've been in public service as an attorney my entire career, and that includes suing the city for the workhouse. So I've been very involved in a bunch of legal lawsuits like that as well. Yeah.
Those questions is for those two. Now this question is for Yinka. So you have 3 questions, and anybody else can weigh in on them if you like. You got any other candidates, listen, and you can also weigh in on them. This is, I think we talked about this a little. It's about how important is it to expand the electorate through voter registration and engagement in 2020, and what can we do to educate voters about their rights, and about no excuse absentee voting and automatic voter registration. Can you remember all of this?
I'll try.
And combating voter suppression, and how will the ballot measures passed in 2008 affect turnout in 2020? We'll let everybody answer that one, but basically yours is about voter suppression, voter registration, and all of that in 2020.
So there's an act called the National, and it's often called the Motor Voter Act. And just this week, there was a decision by a federal judge that basically made Missouri enforce this. So basically, if you go to get your driver's license renewed, or if it's expired, and you go in the driver's license office, they're supposed to allow you to register to vote at the same time. Or if you have a disability, you go to an office that services, that works with you with your disability. It's the same thing. But that's not been happening in this state. That's not been happening with our current Secretary of State. So that ruling just this past week is aimed at enforcing that. So we know voting is important in this country. It's so important that in 1965, this country passed the Voting Rights Act that was passed under President Lyndon Johnson on August 5th of 1965. And so there are federal laws, there are state laws, there are federal rulings by judges that are designed to enforce the voting rights laws. But if you do not have a Secretary of State that is enforcing them, it doesn't matter. And that's what's been happening in this state. So it's extremely important. We saw what happened in Georgia with Stacey Abrams, where that Secretary of State didn't win the election in 2018. That Secretary of State won the election in 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, when he had been dropping people off the voter rolls. So it is not an exaggeration to say that everything we care about is tied to this office. Whether it's healthcare, good jobs, climate change, education, if you can't vote for it, it doesn't matter. And so we've got to ensure that we have a new Secretary of State that can enforce the voting laws we have in the books. There are ballot initiatives. There's one called Vote 2020 that's trying to get on the ballot for next year to bring new ideas like early voting, no excuse absentee voting, voting by mail, things that we ought to be doing in the 21st century. And so we want to support those kinds of ballot initiatives with signatures so they can get on the ballot and that we can get them passed.
I just wanted to add to what Yinka was saying. You know, what he's talking about and what these guys too have been talking about are that our current elected officials aren't doing their job. Okay, so we can all be political and we can all talk about the types of things that we would like to have be different in our government. But at the very basic part of why we run for office is because we take our job seriously. I mean, why go through the trouble of raising money, run for office, be in this public spotlight, go all over the state to win your seat as Secretary of State in this example, and then not do your job? I mean, it's crazy. You know, this current Secretary of State is also not taking any of the federal funds available to make our voting systems more secure. This is your taxpayer dollars that have gone to Washington, D.C., that the Secretary of State says, you know what, you guys keep that money. We're good. We don't need to have our money back to make our voting systems more safe. So in general, you know, elect people who you think are going to do their job. I mean, we're going to work for you. You guys are the bosses here, and you're the ones who get to either hire us or fire us. So I would look for that when next time you're looking to vote for somebody.
So I think this issue, as Yinka was saying, it is the fundamental issue. If we don't have access, we don't have the ability to change anything about our government. And I think it shows you something when the Republican Party appears that they are afraid of voters. That they are not interested in actually doing what we're doing right now, coming out and talking to you, trying to hear your perspective, meet you where you are. Instead, they want to deny you the ability to have a voice. And one of the jobs that the Attorney General has is to protect your constitutional rights. And there is no more fundamental constitutional right in this country than your right to vote. And I am very fearful about what you've seen the Republicans already doing right now in the legislature to try to undermine Clean Missouri. Just give them a little time. They're going to go to the courts next, because they're going to try to find ways, even within that law that you all voted to pass, where you skipped the politicians because they weren't getting it done. You voted to pass that law. They're trying to undermine it because they're not interested in what the voters want. They're interested in what their friends want. And so if there's any issue that I'm going to be vigorous in making sure when I'm Attorney General is enforced, it is that your will in that Clean Missouri Act is enforced and that your vote will count.
This is why we need civil rights enforcement in our state, and it's why we will have a civil rights division at the Attorney General's office.
Mention the fact that, you know, you can do it by ballot initiative and all of that, but Wiley Price has been championing voter rights in the Missouri House of Representatives. And if you want to help him out, you need to look online and come when his bill is being heard in committee and testify in committee. That's how we get bills out of committee. That's how we get them to the floor when we get back up on that. And I filed a companion bill to support his automatic voting in the legislature. I want to say that. Okay, and so we talked about, we got all the voting was out the way. Okay, hold on. So we talked about, and if anybody else have questions, you still got time to get them in. You know, the people walking around, get them, raise your hand. They'll pick them up. Somebody, he got a question back in the back. Since we're talking about Clean Missouri, how do we achieve the mandate of Clean Missouri, which has been watered down by Republicans? Now, let me say this. Clean Missouri was a constitutional amendment that passed, so it's in the Constitution, and I don't think we passed anything successfully last year to interfere with it yet, but they will come after this session. You can answer.
Well, you know, part of the reason why we have to rely so much on ballot initiatives is because of the way that we are currently underrepresented as Democrats in the Missouri legislature. I don't want to get into a whole discussion about gerrymandering, but I know you guys know what that is. It's a systematic way for voters to be just divided up into different areas so that the legislator gets to pick their voters instead of the other way around. It takes a lot of effort and time and money to get a ballot initiative passed. And so as citizens, as people who have elected officials in Jefferson City, we need to pressure them to keep the word of the people as the law of the land. I would also encourage you to talk to your friends. I mean, you may live in a part, if you live in the city of St. Louis or you live on the St. Louis side of the state, you may already have a Democratic representative who's fighting for you and upholding your rights and pays attention to what you want. I encourage you to talk to your family and friends of people who have representation that is from the Republicans. I know it hurts. I know it's painful. But one of the ways we can make Jefferson City more attuned to our values as Democrats is to help those folks in purple parts of our state elect Democrats to their districts. And that's one of the reasons I'm running for state treasurer, because I've run in those purple areas. I know we have to flip those seats or else the senator can't do her job, Representative Price can't do his job. We need to have more people for them to work with. And you know, voting is a numbers game. They can only pass a bill when they have a certain number of votes. So I would encourage you to reach out and talk to folks who are in other parts of the state as well.
I agree with Vicki. This is the work of us all to get more representation in the State House and talking to folks who don't agree with the way you see the world. It's not good enough to, this is great that you're here, you're engaging, but we've got to also reach out to people who may see things differently. Because if we want to change the State House and we want to protect things like Clean Missouri, we've got to have the numbers in the House and in the Senate. And so I think it's about all of us engaging folks who think differently, who are from different parts of the state. Many of us have family members in other parts of the state. And so it's about engaging all across the state and not only around this region.
And I'm going to steal this for a second. You can also give money to candidates who aren't in your district. So feel free to do that as well.
This topic gets me real fired up. We've got an issue with Clean Missouri where they try to change Missouri's sunshine law, our public transparency law. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to insert two little lines that would have made it impossible for us to even get records from our local school districts, from our school boards, which is ridiculous. But the reason that they're doing this, the reason that they're pumping all of this money in through dark money instead of just normal rich people money, is because they're trying to eliminate transparency. And if you eliminate transparency, you can eliminate accountability. That's one of the reasons why I've been pursuing the Sunshine Law lawsuit against our current administration now on my own, with my own money. Oh my God, my credit card, thank God for that. But as Attorney General, that is the office that is supposed to enforce Missouri's Sunshine Law. He's refusing to do it. As Attorney General, I certainly will.
Obviously, I already talked a little about Clean Missouri, so you know how I feel about it, but I'll touch on what Vicki was saying about gerrymandering. This is a real serious issue, and it's one of the main reasons that we are currently not in the majority in Jefferson City. It's not because we don't have the support. It's not because voters don't believe in the things that we believe in. Last time all our ballot initiatives passed, Nicole Galloway won her race, but we cannot win elections if the lines are drawn in such a way that your vote doesn't really count, because it's in a place where it's not going to affect the outcome. This is an issue that I spent most of my last year studying. I actually published an entire paper on this issue because I was so blown away by the way the Republicans had succeeded in taking away your voice, not just by denying you access to the ballot box, not just by taking you off the voter rolls when you go to the polls to vote, but by making it so that when you do go to vote, it doesn't affect anything. Clean Missouri is supposed to fix that. Clean Missouri is set up so that we will have a demographer who will be a nonpartisan person drawing the lines to make the districts competitive, meaning your vote has a chance of affecting the outcome. But like I said, watch out. They're trying to fight with Senator May right now in the legislature. In a few months, they're going to be in the courtroom. And if we don't have people who are skilled lawyers advocating to protect that huge gain that you all made as voters last time, then we're going to be where we are right now, doing all that we can to try to convince people, winning their support, and still not winning majorities in the legislature. So it's one of the main issues that we should all be focused on, and one that I'll be very focused on as Attorney General.
Okay, so the next question has to do with what will you do to address mass incarceration, reduce prison populations, and this is about using your influence and your positions. But sometimes, you know, our offices don't directly affect the question, but as a statewide elected official, how would you help reduce mass incarceration, reduce prison populations, and create better paths to economic opportunities for those who have been incarcerated?
This is a huge, huge issue in our state, and one that I saw firsthand as a prosecutor. All of the young, particularly mostly young men, going to prison. So one of the challenges, when people do not feel they have hope, or they don't feel that their future matters, then people do things that will cause them to ultimately end up in prison. How many of you have read Michelle Alexander's book about mass incarceration? If you have not read that book, please add it to your reading list for the next couple months. It is a terrific book, and it breaks down this issue and some of the solutions to this issue. This is ultimately an education issue, and it's an economic issue. When folks do not have and we talked about educational equity earlier, and that's why educational equity is so important in this region all over the state, is you can predict, and in Texas, the state I grew up in high school, you could predict Texas would base the number of prisons they were going to build based on 4th grade reading levels. And so if we ultimately want to address the issue of mass incarceration, we've got to get to educational equity. And the solutions are not hidden or buried somewhere. The solutions are hiding in plain sight in a beautiful report called the Ferguson Commission Report. It is a 200-page report that lays out a roadmap that is not only effective for this region, but quite frankly for this state, and quite frankly for this country. And so when you begin to implement some of those things and you begin to address this issue of mass incarceration.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Ferguson Commission report. We've got it written. I was pretty involved in that process. I've also been on a task force now called the Keep Kids in Class program, which focuses on the school-to-prison pipeline like you were talking about. And that's definitely an extremely important way for us to get involved. I've worked for the Department of Corrections in our state. I've worked with jails all over our state, and I'm suing one right now in St. Louis. We have the workhouse here that is costing $16 million a year, and we are holding now less than 300 people in that building. For that $16 million, we just implemented Cure Violence in St. Louis, thank goodness. We could have implemented it throughout the entire city and gone even into the county for that same amount of money. And with those 200 people, believe it or not, we actually have room for them right now in the Justice Center. But instead, we're renting rooms out to the federal government so that we can make some money off of those prisoners. They can go somewhere else, and that's usually what they do. They go to different jails throughout our state, and that's where they can be housed, and we can get rid of the workhouse and take $16 million and actually invest it into the community. We need to reinvest in communities throughout our state. We are incarcerating far too many people. We need to invest in diversion courts so that we're treating folks. If you look at the statistics now, the number of people who are in prisons in our state who have addiction issues, it's huge. For men and for women, it's above 90%. But instead of treating folks, instead of getting folks the things that they need, we're just locking them up and hoping that they get better at the end of it without any re-entry plan whatsoever. We need smart, different law enforcement, not the same crap that we've been doing for so long. And we need someone who's going to focus on this as a primary issue. And the Attorney General's office can do a whole lot. I've actually been working with prosecutors and law enforcement officers and community members throughout our state already on plans for this issue. So it's a very important one. And it's one that I think even the governor right now would be able to get on board with reducing our prison population. We can invest that in our communities instead.
Yeah. I'll sort of pick up where Elad left off. This is actually an opportunity for us to find ways to work together with our friends across the aisle to come up with some solutions that will actually help to reduce crime as well as reduce the prison population. And the thing to understand, I was a prosecutor for many years. Elad's right about diversion. It's an amazing way to take somebody who otherwise would become a criminal, have a conviction, and instead be put into a situation where they can actually get their life back on the right track. Because we all know that once they have that conviction, everything gets a lot harder for them. So that's one thing, that's a very important thing. But the biggest predictor of whether or not a person will commit a crime and go to jail is whether they have committed a crime and gone to jail in the past. And so what we can do is if we can find ways to take people who have gone through the justice system when they come out and give them the resources that they need to successfully reintegrate into their communities and make money and be contributors, that's the way that we actually reduce crime as well as reducing what we're doing in our prisons. And the problem there is that you can't, it's not a Band-Aid solution. It has to be a wraparound services solution because, yes, mental health is important. We have to do that. Job placement is important. Job training is important. But all those things have to be there because as soon as one of them falls down, then the person is back in the same situation. So we have to start thinking holistically, but I think there's a recognition now on both sides of the aisle that that's the way that we can effectively do it in a cost-efficient way and actually make people safer at the same time that we're keeping people out of prison.
A town hall forum that Cori Bush had a few nights ago. She's a candidate for Congress here in the St. Louis area, and she had a panel of folks who had done their time and now were out, and some of them were still on parole, some of them were not. And they were able to give their stories about what it was like to be in these jails in prison where they don't have adequate health care, where they don't have the basic heat and cooling, and there were probably more rats in the prison than there were inmates. And so I never really had an opportunity or the experience to hear from the people who are actually going through this system. And so it reminded me that a lot of times as quote-unquote politicians and people who work and have been elected and have served in Jefferson City, there are politicians who come up with a great solution. They come up with a bill, and they write this bill, and it's going to solve this problem. And they're very proud of it, except that it doesn't actually address a problem. It's a solution in search of a problem. And so when I'm looking at an issue like this, and I'm trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to solve these problems, you have to talk to the people who have been having these experiences. And you have to get their input, because if not, you're just coming up with something that makes you feel good and doesn't solve the issue at hand. So that's what I would say about this, and I know that I don't have the answer. I know that, so that's why I'm on a quest for information about issues that I don't know enough about.
So the next question is, what will you do or have done to help candidates down the ballot?
A lot. So of those 300 plus meetings, a lot of those are with state representative candidates throughout our state. We have wonderful folks who are running for office, and they need help. They need to get there, because you can elect any one of us, and now I know if I get elected, I'm going to sue the pants off some people, but I would really love some help in the legislature especially, and in all of the statewide offices, because we need folks who are going to change the way things are being done in a lot of different ways, and that means our laws have to change quite a bit too. So we actually have been very focused on helping state representative candidates fundraise, on helping them get organized for the first time, and helping new folks run for office. There's some folks here who I had the opportunity to help in their first runs as well. So that's something that we're very committed to. We have a huge volunteer base all around the state. We've been working on this for a very long time. I feel very passionate about it, and I've actually recruited candidates well before I was ever running for anything too. So I feel very, very strongly that we need to get as many people as possible involved in our civic engagement system, period. So yeah, I think it's very important.
I don't even like the expression down ballot. I agree with everything Elad said. This is an effort that we are all united in together. The people on the stage are united in it together, and we have to be united with the people who are running in their communities all across the state, rural places, urban places, doesn't matter. We need to have great candidates filling all those offices, because we're going to try to shake as many hands as we can across the state over the course of the next year, but those are the people who are in their communities that can help to advocate for us if we help to advocate for them. So I'm also, as Elad Elad is very committed to making sure that we're recruiting candidates. There are still some offices where we are missing candidates. And so there are some active people in this room. I don't know if any of you might be interested in thinking about running for something in where you are from, but we just need people getting out there to help us do our job of running statewide. And if you are doing that, we will help you as well, because, you know, she's not here today, but our state party chair, Jean Peters Baker, is absolutely committed to making sure that we have enough candidates to have a strong ballot, so there's somebody for them to look for, for your voter to look for all the way down that ticket, to know that there's somebody they can support and trust for every single office. So I'm absolutely committed to getting people engaged in the electoral process.
So the quote-unquote down ballot is where I'm used to living. I've lived down that ballot for my entire political career until this race. I'm going to give a plug for It Starts Today. Mike's right over there. And this is something newfangled stuff they didn't have way back when I was running for state rep. But what it is it's a way for you to commit to a certain dollar amount every month that will then be given to every single Democrat nominee who's running for their either state representative or state senate. And so what it does is it creates a team. You know, we all are on a team, and ultimately politics is an individual sport. You know, each one of us is going to either win or lose, and we have to do our thing. But when you have a team of people that you can do this work with, it makes us all stronger. I'll say one of the reasons I decided to get back into politics was because of my experience winning and my experience losing. You know, I know what it's like to be on both sides of that coin. And I know that this experience I have is something we need to use to recruit more people. You know, running for office isn't rocket science. I can tell you I have not served with rocket scientists when you get to Jefferson City. We serve with a lot of people who are good at what they do, who are passionate, who care about their communities. And so if you ever want to talk to somebody who's been there, talk to somebody who has been in the trenches, talk to someone who's been a working mom every single time she's run for office, come call me, talk to me. My staff person Taylor's right there. She'll give you a card with my cell phone number on it. Or if you know somebody who's thinking about running, I am running for state treasurer. I'm running specifically for a statewide office so I can try to recruit more women, people of color, more people who match their communities so that we can work harder in Jefferson City. Also give some money to It Starts Today. Also.
This is in a phrase about working together. When I was at West Point, the official motto of the academy is duty, honor, country. The unofficial motto is cooperate and graduate. Because as cadets, you've got to work together. You can't graduate without working with your classmates. And it's the same up here. All of us have to work together now, training notes, talking to each other. There are 6 million plus people in this state. It's too big for any one of us to think we can do it by ourselves. So it's about working together so that we can get as many of us elected to office as possible.
Okay, so this area suffers from out-of-town companies owning and allowing properties to sit idle and deteriorate in the urban area. And I think this is for our attorney generals. Other people can answer. What will you do as AG to prevent this from continuing to be a problem?
Well, yes, I mean, Elad mentioned earlier, this is an absolute travesty. It's unbelievable to think that a company could do this to the people that they are supposed to be renting their property to literally have them in a situation where they have to get space heaters, and I read something about someone actually leaving the oven on to heat their home in order to be able to survive. I mean, that's just absolutely unacceptable. And there is a role for the Attorney General to go after that kind of behavior. When a company is breaking the law, and that is a violation of the law, the Attorney General has the power to do something about it. And in fact, our Senator Josh Hawley has even called upon our current Attorney General, Eric Schmidt, to do something about it, and Eric Schmidt has so far done nothing. So you can be assured that by the time that either Elad or I is sitting in the Attorney General's office, we will have done something to make sure that that sort of behavior does not happen again.
I'm going to disagree with one thing, only in that our Attorney General isn't doing anything. Oh, he's doing plenty. He's taking their money. And it's not just folks who are out of town. Paul McKee lives here. Now, he doesn't live in the city. He goes and he lives out in the county while he lets all these properties sit vacant and lets them rot. Since I've been teaching, for more than 10 years since I've been teaching, the properties around Lexington Elementary have been caving in because of that guy. And that guy has bought himself an attorney general. He took $43 million in tax credits, our money, to redevelop these places. You notice anything different? Our Attorney General at the time, Josh Hawley, sued this guy. And then a new Attorney General came in, who just so happened to take a bunch of money from Paul McKee, and Paul McKee's sons, and Paul McKee's attorneys, and Paul McKee's corporations, and then within 6 months he settles a $43 million potential claim for $323,000. And then he donated dark money to the Attorney General. The only reason we know he donated money was because when an investigative reporter asked, where did this money come from? And he saw that this EC1 Fund LLC, whatever the heck it was called, had donated to a state senator in Nixa and called him and said, do you know who this is? He said, well, give me a second. Then he gets back on the phone. He's like, oh yeah, I got a thank you letter for him right here. That's Joe McKee. The only reason that we know that he took money from these people is because a state senator made a mistake. With dark money, the donor sure knows where that money's coming from because it's their money. The recipient candidate or elected official sure knows where it's coming from. They write them thank you cards, but the public has no idea. So not only are we going to go after these folks who are scamming Missourians, but we're going to go after these dark money groups too. They need to get out of this state.
I mean, I guess the only thing I would add is the treasurer also sits on the board of the Missouri Housing Development Corporation and also has some say over the low-income housing tax credits. My opponent, our current treasurer, had a lot to do with taking away those low-income housing tax credits when he was the budget chair. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to put those back in place because we need options for everybody.
Basically, I want you to give a hand because it's like, you know, I said 3 o'clock, I end on time, it's 2:55, they long-winded, so I'm not answering any more questions. So I want you to give them a hand. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out to come listen to the candidates. We wanted to, you know, get them in front of you before next year and things start just snowballing real fast. So you had an opportunity to vet, to hear from them, to get some questions asked. They will be around. You can get their information. They have websites. They have contact people. It's important for you to contact them individually and get your question asked so you can make an educated decision on who to vote for in 2020.